Hey everybody, I want to talk to you a little bit today about justiceforandres.com. First of all, who is Andres? Andres Ocampo is a friend of mine I met in Colombia several years ago when I was living there, traveling and eventually lived there. And Andres is a musician for a band called Los Sucios, The Dirty. They're a punk rock band in Medellin, Colombia, based out of Medellin. Very big in Colombia. They played a lot of arenas, a lot of huge concerts. If you look for them on social media under Los Sucios, that's Lossuziaux, Los Sucios, you will see they have a huge following, especially in Latin America, but more and more all over the world. Anyway, Andres and I met when I was living in Colombia, and we became really good friends. Our shared love of punk music. I was also a fan of his music, his lyrics. The thing about Andres and his lyrics is that he speaks truth to power there in Colombia, and he really represents the working class people of Colombia, and it stands tall against corruption. But he also happens to be a really nice and gentle guy. And anyway, Andres has family that lives here in New York City, where I live, and he's come to visit them over the past 5 years a couple of times. And Andres and I have hung out when he was in New York City. He always went back to Colombia, where he also has kids and family, and he also operates a concert venue there that he was able to open. Part of the reason Andres was able to open the concert venue was because when I launched a TV show called Raw Travel, I asked him for permission to use one of his songs, Armas Silenciosos, Silent Arms, as the theme song for Raw Travel. And Raw Travel became successful. It's been on the air for several seasons. And the royalties from those songs I split with Andres so that he can get some income. And he's used that income in a positive manner to help his community, to create this concert venue and this space so that people, especially young men who are surrounded by gangs and violence, have a place to go and express themselves in other ways through music. And I've visited the venue. It's called El Sub many times. It's wonderful. It's fantastic. If you're ever in Medellin, Colombia, you should visit El Sub. It's in the Castilla neighborhood, and it's definitely not in the tourist zone, but it's a great place. Good people, good music, and but also, plagued with a lot of problems like lots of Colombians. So Andres has committed himself to working to alleviate some of those problems. As I said, Andres came to the U.S. a couple of times. We hung out. We had a great time. He got to see his family. This last June 4th, 2019, Andres was coming back to the U.S. Visa, paperwork, everything. Same issue as before. He had all of his paperwork in order. But for some reason, he was detained at JFK by the Border and Customs Patrol. We're not sure why, but they went through his luggage, as they sometimes do, and they found a pair of work boots. And so immediately a supervisor was brought over and accused Andres, because he had boots in his luggage, of coming here to work illegally. Andres tried to explain, his English is not that great, so Andres tried to explain to the officer, the supervisor, we're not sure of his name. Andres thinks it's Mr. Chang, we're not sure, but the officer would not listen. Andres tried to explain that he was here to visit his family, that he'd been here twice before, and that he's a musician. And anyway, despite the fact that Andres had all these LPs, vinyl records, things like that he had brought to give to his friends, the officer refused to listen and accused him of coming here to work. At that point, they took Andres to an area that Andres tells me was without security cameras, and they essentially presented Andres with a Sophie's Choice type of decision. They said, you can either fight this and you will go to jail and we'll detain you, and then you'll never be able to come back to the United States again, or you can sign this confession. And they gave him a piece of paper, a written document that they had typed up. You can sign this document and we'll revoke your visit this time, your visa, but you can always apply and maybe come back. Andres was confused. He had been held at this point for several hours. And so all he knew is he didn't want to go to jail. He didn't want to, not be able to come back and visit his family. So he signed this piece of paper, which I will post for you guys. And it basically says that he was coming here to work and that he had broken the law because he worked at a place called Mr. Bubbles in Queens. The reality is Andres has never worked at a place called Mr. Bubbles. He's never heard of Mr. Bubbles. So this was a fictional document that our Border Patrol and Customs Service basically pressured him to sign. They would not allow Andres to make any phone calls to his relatives who were worried about him at this point because he was supposed to be, at home. They were meeting him at the airport. He was nowhere to be found, and he had no communication with anyone. They dropped him off on the next flight back. Only then, when he was on the plane, could he text his mother and his family and let them know what was going on, that he was being sent back to Medellin. He finally arrived back at Medellin 30 hours after his trip. Now, some of you guys may not have traveled before to countries like Colombia or Latin America, but those of you who have know that it's not a wealthy country. Andres is a musician, so he's not a wealthy individual. He supports his family. He does have a concert venue there, but generally speaking, they work very hard for very little money. So you can imagine the airfare that the money he had to save in order to fly to New York to visit his mother, and then to just get turned around. It was a useless trip. On top of that, he now has to reapply for a visa, and he has this on his record. And so what we want to do is we want to try to bring awareness to this issue, because what Andres told me that day was that this was happening not just to him, but to a lot of other people. That he relayed a story about a gentleman who was in a wheelchair, and they were going through his medicine and asking him where the prescriptions were. And when he couldn't produce them, they sent him back. This gentleman, who Andres calls Mr. Chang, was essentially sending everybody back. So this was on June 4th, 2019 at the JFK Airport, port of entry. So we've filled out a Freedom of Information Act form. The first one got kicked back, so I'm refilling out another one because some procedure, something wasn't followed. So we're going to try to get more information on that. In the meantime, we've started justiceforandres.com because we want to do a few things. We want to, of course, first and foremost, bring awareness to this issue, because we know that Andres Ocampo is not the only person that this type of behavior has occurred with before. I know from my past experience, I traveled extensively many years ago before I was able to get global entry. I was getting detained because someone matched my description that was wanted by the government. Someone from Florida matched my description. So even though I obviously was not that individual, I was detained repeatedly, and I was thrown into a room and essentially treated like a criminal, along with all these other scared individuals from other countries who had no idea what was going on. So we want to bring awareness to this issue. You have to understand the port of entry at an airport like JFK or any airport in the country is often the first glimpse of the United States that some of our travelers' friends will have. And if they're treated like criminals, or they're treated so uncourteously or discourteously, it sends a really bad message about this country. And I can tell you, I visited 70 some odd countries, including Russia and Cuba, and places that aren't amenable to the United States. And some of the worst treatment I've had was back in the day when I would get detained by United States Customs and Border Patrol. They have a job to do, but they can do it in a courteous manner, and they can do it in an honest manner, which obviously did not occur here with Andres. The second thing we want to do with justiceforandres.com is hopefully raise some funds just to help him get whole from the airfare that he's out of pocket from that trip that never really happened. And then the third thing we want to do is, if we're able to, if we can raise the funds, reapply for Andres on an artist visa and bring him to the United States and have him, maybe tour the country and do some concerts for, fans and people that know about Andres, either through this or other venues. Now, I know there are a million great causes for your money. We're not trying to take people's hard-earned money. Unless you feel really moved by this cause, please hold on to your money. But if you do feel moved by this cause, we want to give you a venue where you can help and assure you that the money will be put to good use. So that's the reason for this website. That's the reason for the fundraiser. We want to reward people who do that. So we're offering some tracks of Andres's band, Los Sucios, for those of you who like rock music, who like punk music, or just want to support. There's a level for that. There's a level for t-shirts as well. And we're just trying to raise awareness, really. My mission as a traveler is to always represent the United States of America in the most positive manner I can when I'm traveling abroad. Because I realize that a lot of people are only getting their information about the U.S. from the media. And who knows what that message is. It's, it could be very negative. I know in many instances, people see movies and they think, oh, there's just car explosions everywhere. That it's an extremely dangerous place, which, arguably maybe it is, but not the kind of dangerous place they have in their mind, that there's just violence breaking out everywhere, because that's the image that they see. So when they see me, I feel a responsibility to be the best version of myself, because I'm not only representing myself, but my fellow countrymen back in the United States. I feel like Border Custom Control Patrol has the exact same responsibility, except tenfold. They are the people that they're first interacting with in the United States, that our visitor friends are first interacting with. And if they treat them all with disrespect and uncourteousness like they did Andres, throwing his vinyl records around, yelling at him, pressuring him, intimidating him, as they did me when I was detained as well. So, essentially acting as if they're above the law, and kind of going rogue, and I'm not really sure who oversees them. So we want to bring awareness to this and see if maybe we can figure some things out and maybe change some behavior in the future, so that less of these types of things happen in the future, and that people like Andres, who pose no threat to this country, can come in and visit their family. Andres's mother is sick, and so he hasn't seen her in several years. He wants to see her. She's unable to travel to him. She lives here in New York. She's a U.S. citizen now. He wants to travel to see her before it's too late. If you feel so moved, do donate. If you don't have the money or the funds, or you're not, willing to do that, that's no problem. Maybe just help by sharing this story, sharing this video, sharing this website. Whatever you can do, we greatly appreciate it. We not only want to get justice for Andres, we want to change the behavior of our Customs and Border Patrol, specifically in JFK, but anywhere there may be bad behavior. Basically, I just want to make sure that, there's not a few people dragging the rest of us down, and that's what it feels like is happening at Border Patrol. And so I'm hoping that this video, this effort will help a little bit. Thank you guys for your support. Thank you for your help and understanding. We really appreciate it.